For the past 11 years, the oldest Anarchy server in Minecraft has had an unwritten rule. If you build something here, eventually it will be griefed, no matter how secretive you think your location is. Thousands of bases have fallen over the past decade, with nothing remaining but ruins and craters. Normally these digital relics would be lost forever, but one man has been saving the server's history one base at a time. His name is TERBIN, and he spent thousands of hours preserving many of the server's most iconic locations and putting them in one place. It's called the Archive, and it's the largest collection of 2B2T history you can find. A server dedicated to preserving bases as they were before their eventual griefs. In addition to bases, the Archive contains other pieces of history, such as what Spawn looked like every single year since 2011, a collection of map arts from before they were wiped, and other strange oddities. But starting a server of this magnitude was not easy, and many technical challenges had to be overcome in order to make the experience as authentic as possible. Merging world downloads together, analyzing terrain for accuracy compared to the seed, not to mention the massive time and financial commitments to keep everything operational. Today we dive into the history of the Archive, 2B2T's most detailed and established world download server, and how one person with a passion for digital history managed to preserve it on a scale never before seen in Minecraft. The Archive is sort of like a multiverse of different 2B2T bases. What would you do if you were a warrior in the multiverse? Well, in Dark Nemesis you can find out. Dark Nemesis is a mobile action RPG focused on character growth and real-time guild battles. The game takes place in a dark fantasy world with stunning graphics where you can play with friends or against rivals. The game is thrilling, fast-paced, and can be played almost anywhere, making it a great mobile experience. Fight against hundreds of players in Battle Royale mode, and be the last one standing in the multiverse. You can also hone your skills in 1-on-1 combat, 5-on-5, or even 10-on-10. Acquire spirits, companions, and even wings for yourself, and level them up to become stronger. You can work together with friends to form a guild and unlock more resources to have at your disposal. If you think you have what it takes, click the link in the description and use my game code to get started. Don't forget to check their video contest. Create your own video with the hashtag DarkNemesis, and you'll have the chance to win gift cards and in-game rewards. Thanks again to Dark Nemesis for sponsoring today's video. Now then, let's get started. To understand why the Archive is such an amazing achievement of preservation, we need to start at the beginning. In 2018, a player named TERBIN joined 2B2T for the first time. His story began the same way that many others do. He managed to escape Spawn, and once he was far enough away, he began constructing his first base, a large underground cave filled with vegetation and a complex stone ceiling. His survival goals were complete, and he began wondering what his next step would be. At this point in their journeys, some people become PvPers, some start their own groups, and some simply continue wandering. But TERBIN began taking an interest in the server's history, specifically world downloads of famous bases from before they were destroyed. In the past, there had been servers that hosted some of these world downloads, but they were either private or were not very user-friendly. TERBIN began connecting with people in the community and making friends, which allowed him to obtain many different world downloads. What started as a simple collection began to grow into something more. Eventually, he wanted to start his own server to host them on that improved on many aspects of his predecessors. The leaders of the previous projects generously gave him the existing infrastructure and additional world downloads. His new creation would be like a digital museum, but far more sophisticated. It would allow users to easily explore places they had seen in YouTube videos or old screenshots and see their progression throughout the years. Places long since destroyed. The server would be almost identical to the real 2B2T, starting with the spawn region and continuing out in all directions. Bases would then be placed at their actual coordinates, and players could freely teleport to the ones of their choosing. In a way, it would act as a way to explore 2B2T without having to wait in the server's notorious queue. In April of 2019, TERBIN quietly opened his server to some whitelisted users, and soon realized that running a server like this came with many different challenges. The first was space. Some world downloads were gigabytes in size, and the fact that there were so many of them made the cost of hosting them not exactly cheap. And unlike 2B2T, there was no queue system for financial support. Luckily, one of TERBIN's friends was a player named HERMETICLOCK, who was well known in the community. He offered to pay half of the server costs out of his own pocket each month, an incredibly generous gesture. This would allow the archive to truly get off the ground. But then came another issue: accuracy. TERBIN wanted the archive to be as close to the real server as possible, and this involved having to merge multiple world downloads, a task easier said than done. Many downloads of old bases had inaccurate chunk borders on the edges that were not present on the actual server, so they had to be removed manually to allow them to be placed accurately. One of TERBIN's associates, a player named thearchive, put together a program that allowed world downloads to be merged together more easily, and this tool proved to be incredibly useful. Another issue was redundancy. Even if the downloads were accurate, what happens if you have multiple versions of the same location but from different time periods, and they have to occupy the same location? The solution was to use alternate dimensions that would allow users to view an area through its lifespan. Think of it like a sandwich with multiple layers. A 100k by 100k world download of 2B2T's spawn region was the base layer the archive was built on, and areas from different time periods would be placed either above or below it. This system would allow users to pick a location from a list and choose which version of it to explore. Factoring in that this is also including locations in the Nether and End, it was a very complex system. Eventually, this quote-unquote sandwich would contain 131 different layers, or more specifically, 131 different dimensions hosted on the same server. That's a lot. Most of the technical issues had been solved, but then came a moral one. What if potential griefers would use the archive to track down bases to destroy on the real 2B2T? The server would be doing the exact opposite of its intended purpose, to preserve history. TERBIN made it clear that only locations that had already gone public would be put on the archive. If a base was still secret or intact, he would not include it, even if the owners had given him a world download directly. He also made sure that he himself was the only one with direct server access, preventing any sort of backdoor shenanigans. TERBIN would spend the next 7 months preparing the archive for public release. He would spend thousands of hours of his own time working on the project. That's a huge commitment, but just shows how passionate about the server's history he had become. His connections in the community expanded, and many were generous enough to donate their old world downloads, making the archive the largest collection of a single Minecraft server's history in one place. On November 20th, 2019, the archive was finally open to the public, and it became an incredible resource for the entire community. Over the years, TERBIN would continue to improve the user experience, and began adding other aspects of the server's history, different map arts, what the queue system looked like from the outside, and other strange oddities that you wouldn't normally think of as being in a museum. Eventually, the archive would contain over 1,500 warps, all accessible via a simple menu. Over 1,000 of these were individual bases, with the others being multiple versions of a singular location. Eventually, the archive contained 900 gigabytes worth of world downloads. The crazy part is that this selection of 1,000 bases is only a fraction of the amount that have actually been built on 2B2T over the past decade. This is arguably one of the largest collections of Minecraft history in a single place, and it was all thanks to the passion of one man, and the support of the people he surrounded himself with. If you want to check out the archive for yourself, I've listed the IP in the description. A huge thank you to TERBIN for creating such an amazing public resource for all to use. If you found this video informative, don't forget to leave a like and hit that subscribe button. Also follow my socials, so take it easy, Fit Fam, and stay alive out there.